Discover the heartwarming journey of transformation after a life-changing Thanksgiving revelation. The Thanksgiving dinner was supposed to be ordinary, yet it spiraled into something otherworldly. As families gathered, the air crackled with tension. Grandma Ethel, with her wrinkled hands clasped, muttered an old family secret. The turkey wasn't the only thing roasting. Whispers floated through the air, hinting at a hidden truth that could shatter everything. Around the table, eyes widened. Cousin Benny, the skeptic, laughed nervously, but his hands trembled around his glass. "You can't be serious, Ethel," but the flicker in her eyes spoke volumes. Suddenly, the lights flickered and flickered again, casting eerie shadows like ghosts at a carnival. The walls felt like they were closing in, pressing secrets against the brave souls daring to unravel them. Then came the strange odors wafting from the kitchen. A burnt pie? No, something sweeter and more sinister. A chill crawled up everyone's spine, making the soft chatter turn to hushed panic. Sam, who had been quiet all night, faintly whispered, "What are we really celebrating here?" Time paused. Could it be, after all these years, someone had found the truth about the family curse tied to a special recipe? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as tension thickened, Cousin Clara burst into laughter, trying to cut the air with humor. But her eyes sparkled with a hint of fear, revealing that the darkness was already creeping into their hearts. The evening wore on, and Ethel summoned the courage to reveal the long-suppressed secret over the family's feasting table. With a sharp inhale, she leaned in closer, the air so tight it was almost choking. "What if I told you that the recipe isn't just for cranberry sauce, but for unlocking the truth about who we really are?" The room fell silent. Everyone held their breath, as if the walls themselves were drinking in the gravity of that statement. What truth? What lie had been hidden beneath layers of gravy and laughter? The night felt electric, and it sent shivers down spines. Every heartbeat echoed with questions. Would this Thanksgiving dinner lead to revelations they never could have anticipated? An unsettling quiet enveloped the dining room, thick as molasses. Cousin Benny shifted in his seat, his bravado dissolving faster than the mashed potatoes on his plate. "Ethel, come on, you're joking, right?" His chuckle was unsteady, echoing off the walls as if the very house was mocking him. Grandma Ethel's gaze never wavered. She leaned in, her voice lowering. "Long ago, our family was intertwined with something darker. The recipe for cranberry sauce isn't just a culinary delight. Each ingredient carries a part of our story, a tale of loss and sacrifice." A chill trickled over the diners. Sam's fingers gripped the edge of the table as if it were a lifeline. "So, you're saying our Thanksgiving dinner is built on what? Lies? Curses?" His brows knitted tightly, anger bubbling just beneath the surface. Clara cleared her throat, trying to maintain the facade of levity. "I think we're all just hungry. Maybe it's time to eat?" But the feigned cheeriness fell flat. The shadows growing deeper in the corners of the room spoke volumes. But before anyone could respond, the lights flickered again, this time plunging them briefly into darkness. A gasp escaped from Aunt Marge, her chair squeaking against the wooden floor as she jolted upright. What in tarnation was that? Incredible timing, isn't it? Benny scoffed, though his voice dripped with uncertainty. Ethel raised her hand, silencing the murmurs. "No, listen closely." Outside, the wind howled, mirroring the rising tempest in the room. Ethel's voice cut through the tension with a clarity that demanded attention. Many generations ago, a family member faced a harrowing choice. The recipe meant to bring feasting became a source of despair. Each Thanksgiving, we masked the truth in flavors and aromas, a distraction from what we lost. Sam's voice cracked, disbelief written all over his face. So we're cursed? Every Thanksgiving we celebrate while haunted by what? Some family betrayal? Ethel's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and for a moment, the matriarch appeared fragile. Yes, a choice made in the fog of desperation, a sacrifice that came at a high price. A heavy silence fell again, broken only by the ticking of the clock, a relentless reminder of time slipping away. Benny's cynical mask slipped just a little, revealing raw panic in his eyes. You can't be serious. So what's the solution? How do we break free? Ethel met his gaze, her fingers trembling slightly as she pointed toward the kitchen. The answer lies within the sauce. If someone dares to change the recipe, we could either lift the curse or seal our fate forever. Fear coursed through the group, a palpable presence that overshadowed the feast laid out on the table. But who will do it? Clara's voice quivered, dread creeping in like the encroaching shadows. I will. Sam stood up, determination igniting his features. If there's even a chance we can find out the truth and rid ourselves of this burden, I'll do it. The room erupted, voices clashing and weaving into chaos. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into blackness once more. A terrible crash echoed from the kitchen, silencing the rising sun of chatter immediately. What was that? It was a small, terrified whisper, and the entire family turned toward the source of the noise, as if waiting for an ominous figure to emerge from the darkness. Sam? Ethel called out tentatively, the answer hanging in the air like a question mark shrouded in uncertainty. And yet, despite the dread, courage flickered in the hearts of the family. What would they discover if they dared to confront their culinary legacy? Suddenly, the kitchen door swung open with a force that sent chills down their spines. A sinister, sweet aroma wafted into the room, mingling with the fear thick in the air. It beckoned them to step forward, to uncover secrets long buried. But what had Sam unearthed? Was this the start of their liberation or their doom? The silence was suffocating, reverberating off the walls like the final note of a haunting melody. Everyone's eyes were glued to the kitchen doorway, where the lingering aroma curled around them, fragrant yet foreboding. Sam had vanished into the dark, and the weight of anticipation hung over the table like an invisible shroud. Shouldn't we do something? Clara whispered, her voice barely breaking through the tension. I need to know, Benny stammered, inching toward the kitchen, looking more frightened than brave. Ethel stayed seated, tears tracing silent paths down her cheeks. It was as if she sensed that events were spiraling beyond their control. Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the room in a stark, fluorescent glow. And there stood Sam, silhouetted against the kitchen's doorway, his arms slowly lowering to reveal a heavy, vintage pot filled with what looked like dark, bubbling sauce. Sam! Ethel exclaimed, her voice trembling. What did you do? He took a shaky step forward, visibly shaken but resolute. I didn't change the recipe. Couldn't. But I found something that belonged here. The pot's contents churned, exuding an odor that was otherworldly, rich with layers of spice and something else, something more primal. What do you mean? You have to change it. We have to break this curse. Clara cried, panic rising in her voice. No, you don't understand, Sam said, his brow knitted in confusion. It's not just food. It's like the sauce has a mind of its own. He carefully set the pot down on the table, the sound of it hitting the wood sending a shiver down everyone's spines. Is that what I think it is? Benny stuttered, leaning closer, his face paling. The sauce simmered, bubbling like a cauldron, a deep crimson melding with dark spices that danced in the air. Listen, Ethel cried. Each ingredient has a history, carries a memory. Maybe what Sam found isn't just old sauce. Maybe it's the essence of our family's past. The room buzzed with electricity, the air crackling with a mix of fear and intrigue. The spicy scent grew stronger, wrapping tighter around them like a warm, unwanted embrace. But before anyone could further decipher the revelation, the lights flickered again, momentarily dimming, then surged back brightly. And then something shifted within the sauce. A whisper, soft at first, like the rustling of leaves, floated up. The family leaned in closer, their breaths held tight in their throats. "What's happening?" Aunt Marge gasped, her face pale under the harsh lights. "I think," Sam started, his voice trembling. "I think the memories are coming through. Can you hear it?" They all strained to listen. The whispers swirled around them, unveiling sounds of laughter, arguments, tears, and heartache, the tapestry of their family's hidden history. Ethel's expression morphed from dread to something soft, almost nostalgic. "Grandpa, he always said we must remember the past to understand our future." Her voice trailed off, lost in the clamor of memories rising from the jar. But then, suddenly, the ominous sweetness started to sour. The sauce boiled over, foaming violently, and the whispers turned frantic, echoing with desperation. "What have we unleashed?" Clara shouted, heart racing. Benny stepped back, panic overflowing in his eyes. "Get it away. It's not just sauce anymore. No, it's our history," Sam yelled back, rooted in place as the chaos unfolded. The air grew thick, swirling with old sorrow and a growing urgency. They were trapped in a web of their family's darkest secrets, and a choice loomed on the horizon. Change it or confront it, Ethel's voice trembled. "What do we do now?" The bubbling pot seemed to pulse with life, a sentient force demanding a decision. And with their collective futures hanging by a thread, they had to make a choice, one that could either sever the cycle or plunge them deeper into darkness. What would their decision cost them? Would they dare to embrace the depths of their own legacy or fight to burn their past to the ground? The pot shook violently, its contents threatening to spill over. The family recoiled, yet no one dared to break away. They were ensnared in a tense standoff, a shared understanding that they stood on the precipice of something monumental. "Sam, do something," Clara yelled, her voice cracking. "I can't," he replied, his eyes wide with terror, mesmerized by the swirling chaos within the pot. "I think it wants us to remember to face what we've buried." Ethel's gaze softened, the shadow of sadness mingling with flickering hope. "Maybe that's the only way out, embracing our past." "Embracing?" Benny's brow furrowed. "You mean reliving the pain? We can't just let it take us back into that darkness. We have to," Ethel shouted, surprising even herself. "If we don't confront it, it will keep haunting us. It will consume us." The sauce began to bubble more fiercely, the aromas rising in a sickening display. Sweet and acrid, they clawed at their senses. It was as if the pot craved acknowledgement, each sent a memory, demanding to be released. A gust of wind surged through the kitchen, slamming the door shut. The lights stuttered once more, leaving them standing in near darkness, the only illumination coming from the pulsating pot. "What is happening?" Aunt Marge whimpered, her frail hands trembling against the table's edge. As if sensing their desperation, the pot erupted in a dramatic crescendo, the whispers crescendoing to a cacophony. Clara flinched at the overwhelming rush of voices. "I can't take this anymore," she screamed. "Stay calm," Sam urged, though his voice quivered. "Look for the memories embedded in the chaos. There's something important in them." Then the voices shifted, turning deliberately clear. Clara's wide eyes found Ethel's, and they both recognized one repeated phrase breaking through the tumult. Forgive me," echoed again. It lingered, punctuated by the heartbreaking sound of sobbing. "Is that Mom?" Ethel whispered, her heart lurching. She took a step closer, drawn by an emotional pull as memories flooded back faded family gatherings, laughter tangled with disappointment, estrangements carved into their history. The cauldron erupted, spilling over fiery red sauce that tinged the table's surface, pooling ominously toward their feet. It felt alive, almost sentient, oozing out old grudges, regret, and grief. Fear clawed at her throat, but she felt an inexplicable urge to dive into the pain, to gather it all and let it wash over her like a wave. "Ethel, no!" Benny shouted, snapping back to life. "Don't get too close. I have to," she insisted, the resolve flowing through her. These voices, they deserve to be heard. If it's Mom, we owe her this. In that instant, The content of the pot surged violently, once more, blinding light bathing everything. Whispers transformed into ghostly faces that flickered and hovered just above the bubbling surface, swirling in the chaos as memories from the past played out like a movie, scenes flickering in and out with painful clarity. "Help us," they said. "You must forgive." The world wavered, sensation twisting around Ethel, her heart pounding, the realization dawning that this was a path laid bare before her, a journey into the very essence of her family's laughter and sorrow. But as the revelations around her escalated into a fever pitch of disbelief and intrigue, a shudder ran through the house. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them, as if the very foundation was ready to give way. "Ethel, we must make a decision now," Sam yelled over the din. "Are we going to embrace this chaos, or turn our backs and let it haunt us forever?" The pot pulsated with a life of its own, every bubbling bubble a whisper of the past, urging her on. Just then, the lights went out, plunging them into darkness. The last thing she felt was the warm, thick sauce seeping into her shoes, a heavy reminder that time was running out. What choice would she make? Would she dare dive into the heart of their family's grief? Or would she learn that confronting the past could unleash something even darker? As silence enveloped them, one final thought echoed in her mind. The moment of truth awaited, and the mystery of their legacy hung just beyond reach. Ethel's heart raced, a fluttering bird trapped in a cage of urgency. She felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The flickering light cast frantic shadows that danced around the kitchen, stretching against the walls like lost souls reaching for freedom. She glanced at her family. Benny's face was taut with concern, Clara's eyes darting from the pot to Ethel, and Sam stood frozen, caught in the tide of chaos. The air thickened, heavy with unspoken words and the bittersweet scent of simmering memories. Ethel started, but her voice was swallowed by the howling wind that rattled the windows. A shiver snaked down her spine as she stepped closer to the pot, drawn by an invisible string. "Ethel, please," Benny choked out, his voice cracking under the strain. It was a plea and a warning all at once. "Forgive me," the phrase echoed, now more urgent, like a call from the depths of her soul. She narrowed her eyes on the pot, where the contents continued to bubble violently, morphing into shapes that felt hauntingly familiar. "Mom?" Her voice trembled, barely a whisper, but the word held the weight of all her childhood, fragile yet unbreakable. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her, a whirlwind of emotion. Each voice melded with others, layering memories of love intertwined with loss, laughter stained by tears. Ethel could feel them, creeping like shadows from the recesses of her mind, begging to be acknowledged. Then, a face emerged, forming from the rolling steam, an ethereal visage of a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. It was her mother, enveloped in glowing tendrils of the past. Ethel's breath caught as a wave of recognition crashed over her. "Forgive me," the apparition said again, its tone pleading. "You must forgive me." Suddenly, the kitchen turned colder, an icy grip wrapping around her heart. The pot erupted, spewing the sauce outward like a fountain of scarlet. Ethel stumbled back, her feet slipping in the red tide, her balance stolen by the gravity of the moment. "Get away!" Clara screamed, scrambling to pull her back. Sammy reached out, but Ethel gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles turning white. "I want tea, let this go," she shouted defiantly. "I refuse to let it choke us anymore." The faces in the vapor contorted, showing pain, yearning, and a tempest of regret from the past. Ethel felt every pang of sorrow pushing against her chest. She realized then that the key to breaking the chains lay within the essence of those memories, the happiness mixed with heartache that had shaped her family. "I forgive you," she cried, the words spilling from her lips like a dam releasing its flood. "I forgive you, Mom, for everything. I need to understand." In that moment, a brilliant light exploded from the pot, stirring the shadows away and illuminating the room in a blinding glow. Time seemed to freeze as the past, present, and future collided in a colorful tapestry of their shared history. But then, from the deep recess of the light, a thunderous growl echoed through the house, a voice unlike any other. "You think forgiveness is free, Ethel?" It boomed, vibrating through the air. What are you willing to sacrifice to find your truth? Ethel's heart dropped. The realization hit her hard. This was just the beginning. There were depths to dive into she'd never dreamed of. Her eyes met those of her family. They were all caught in the web of what lay ahead, their expressions a mixture of fear and determination. "Are you ready?" Sam asked, his voice steady despite the tremor of uncertainty. Just as she opened her mouth to answer, a shattering sound erupted somewhere deep within the house, breaking the fragile moment. The ground shook violently beneath them, and as fear raced through her veins, one thought paralyzed her: the truth they sought might cost them everything. Could they withstand the storm that lay ahead? Would they face whatever demons had been unleashed? And more importantly, what more would they discover about their family's legacy in the shadows of the past? The ground rumbled beneath their feet as if the house itself was a living entity, writhing in fear alongside them. Ethel's pulse quickened, each beat a reminder of the stakes at play. Sammy's breath hitched as shards of ceramic flew past them, remnants of a plate that had met its demise just beyond the kitchen doorway. "Get down," Benny commanded, pulling Clara to the floor as a loud crash reverberated upstairs. A heartbeat later, the sound of feet thundering overhead echoed, carried by the chaos spiraling out of control. Ethel felt a mix of terror and exhilaration course through her veins. The light from the pot flickered like lightning, illuminating faces transformed by shock and determination. They were alive, each of them, and together they were stronger than the shadows that threatened to consume them. Trembling, Ethel focused on her mother's apparition. It flickered like a candle, struggling against the storm that simmered below the surface. "What do we need to do?" she shouted, her voice competing against the cacophony. She felt the weight of her family's history pressing down upon her and wondered if they'd all be able to bear it. "Accept the pain," the spectral image urged, her expression earnest yet hazy. "To heal, you must confront what was lost." In that instant, clarity struck Ethel like a bolt of lightning. Those memories so sweet, yet steeped in sorrow, held the key to their liberation. A deep breath filled her lungs as she struggled to stand tall against the chaos. "We have to confront it. All of it." Just as a wave of resolve washed over her, a sinister voice boomed from the shadows cast by the light. "You think mere words can shield you from the truth?" It sliced through the air, menacing and rich with disdain. "Sacrifice is not simply giving up. It demands a price." Her resolve wavered. The room shook again, and pieces of the ceiling started to fall, dust swirling like ghosts. Ethel's eyes darted to Clara and Benny, their faces pale. They were mere breath away from unraveling. "What else must we do?" Benny shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. "There has to be a way." But the air thickened with hesitation. Would they dare confront the shadows? This was more than just a family legacy. This was their very essence, their survival against despair. "I will face it," Ethel declared, brimming with newfound courage. "Together, we drown out the darkness with the light of our love." As if galvanized by her words, a golden hue enveloped the room, flowing from the pot and illuminating the space with warmth. Shadows recoiled, overwhelmed by the brightness of vulnerability and hope. One by one, the faces they saw in that light flickered to life, memories of laughter, tenderness, and triumph. "I refuse to let the weight of the past break us," Ethel yelled, steeling her spine. "We are stronger than our burdens." But just as confidence surged through her, the angry voice retorted, "You think love is enough? What if the truth you seek is worse than your pain?" A wave of icy panic washed over her. Could they withstand such a revelation? What betrayal of bonds awaited them in the depths? Time hung suspended as Ethel's family locked eyes with her. They had to make a choice now. Would they brave the storm and face what lay hidden, or would fear keep them shackled to their past? Outside, the wind howled louder, joining in an eerie symphony with the warping wood and shaking walls. The kitchen, bathed in light, suddenly flickered again. A final question rang out within their minds, as heavy as lead, anchoring them in uncertainty. What truths would emerge if they delved into the ghostly depths of their past? And how would they bear it when the foundations of their family were put to the ultimate test? Ethel's heart raced, and for a moment, all she could hear was the blood rushing in her ears. Shadows danced on the walls, dramatic shapes twisting and contorting in the flickering light. She took a tentative step forward, feeling the cool floor beneath her feet, anchoring her in the present despite the chaos looming around them. "Are you ready?" Clara's voice trembled, laced with uncertainty. Ethel turned to her sister, who clutched Benny's arm tightly, as if he were her only lifeline. The weight of their shared fears hung thick in the air, potent and overwhelming. "I'm ready," Ethel replied, a fierce determination etched on her features. She looked to Benny, who drew in a shaky breath, his eyes boring into hers with a mix of empathy and fear. "We have to do this. Together." Another tremor shook the house, mirroring Ethel's pounding heart. Dust fell from the ceiling like tiny shooting stars, swirling into the golden light that surrounded them. She held onto that light how it enveloped them, wrapping them in warmth when the darkness threatened to strangle. "Okay, on the count of 3, Benny said, his voice steadying as he looked at Clara and Ethel. 1, 2. Each number felt like a countdown to a precipice, their choice imperiling them all. 3, he shouted, and with that, they moved as one. Stepping closer to the teapot, it glowed softly now, pulsing, as if it had a heartbeat. "Reveal to us the truth," Ethel called out, her voice echoing defiantly. The shadows seemed to shriek back in response, caught off guard by her courage. As the golden glow intensified, a wave of an unnatural chill swept through the room. Ethel could taste it, a metallic tang in the back of her throat, the flavor of fear. The kettle rattled violently, the light swirling faster now, a cyclone of warmth and shadows. Suddenly, the air thickened like syrup, pressing against her chest. Ethel gasped, struggling for breath. It felt as if the house itself were exhaling, pushing forth something long sealed away. And then they came memories, spectral forms drifting from the light, faces that had haunted her dreams. An older version of her mother, laughter soft on her lips, flickered before her. Ethel's heart lurched. But then there were darker figures, shadows twisted with secrets, entwining around the cherished memories like vines. "What do you see?" Clara cried out, panic creeping into her voice. Ethel felt dizzy, fighting against the weight of both love and betrayal. "I see." Ethel struggled to articulate it, each word pulling her deeper into a memory forest from which she couldn't escape. "I see our family and pain. So much pain." Benny stepped closer, eyes wide. "What kind of pain? What happened?" Clarity crashed over Ethel as an image materialized, jagged and fractured. There was a secret. She fought to piece together the fragments, the grief threatening to engulf her whole. "Something about our past, it ties us together and keeps us apart." Suddenly, all the lights went out, plunging them into darkness. The ghostly forms wavered but didn't vanish. A moment of suffocating silence wrapped around Ethel, drowning her in dread. Then, the malevolent voice echoed again, haunting and sinister, chilling her to the core. "You cannot face the truth of your bloodline, Ethel. It has already doomed you." Ethel felt a chill run down her spine. Would they uncover their family's darkest secrets? Or would they be swallowed whole by their own legacy? She gritted her teeth. "We'll face it. Whatever it is, we can handle this." A flicker of light sparked, revealing the torn faces of her family, locked in unending fear. Outside, the storm raged, bolts of lightning momentarily illuminating the chaos. But nothing could outshine the truth they were about to confront. "Are you ready?" Ethel whispered, not just to her family but to herself. They stood at the edge of the unknown, with everything they ever knew hanging in the balance. And as the echoes of their past stirred, a singular question loomed in the shadows. What horrors and truths awaited them in the darkness of their family legacy? The silence wrapped around them, heavy and suffocating. Ethel's heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing her desperation to know, to understand. The flicker of the ethereal light turned the shadows into menacing figures that danced around them, unfurling the past like a nightmarish tapestry. With every crack of lightning outside, memories splintered and flared up, revealing glimpses of a life lived under the weight of secrets. Ethel. Clara's voice quivered, a stark reminder of their vulnerability. What do we do now? I don't know, Ethel admitted, frustration and fear battling within her. But we can't back down. Not now. Benny stepped forward, his face streaked with shadows, eyes glinting with resolve. We need to push through. There's something we need to uncover. Whatever it is, it's got a grip on us. A sudden surge of courage flared in Ethel, igniting something deep within. She advanced toward the teapot, its sinister glow pulsing as if it beckoned her. What do you want from us? She shouted into the darkness, her voice bouncing off the walls. Show us. Within moments, the light began dancing again, swirling into a vortex of hazy images, tattered family photographs, twisted smiles, a flickering Christmas tree that cast odd shadows across a living room, and behind it all, dark whispers that curled around her like smoke. Look, Clara yelled, pointing to a scene projecting from the light. In it, a young woman, her own mother, stood with arms crossed, tears glistening in her eyes but mixed with a strange satisfaction. Ethel felt a pain slice through her chest. This wasn't just a memory. It was a confrontation. What's happening? Benny gasped, squinting at the chaos unfolding. The air felt charged, thick with unspoken words and heavy burdens as if to answer him. The malevolent voice returned, dripping with disdain. Your family did not choose the stories written upon their souls. They were painted with the brush of deceit and blood. Blood? Ethel's voice trembled as she clutched her sister's hand, feeling the tremors of panic spike between them. What do you mean? The shadows twisted as if burdened by their own weight, and from the chaos came more figures, men with hollow eyes, women cloaked in sorrow. Each one bore a striking resemblance to Ethel, Clara, and even Benny. It hit Ethel like a punch to the gut. These are our ancestors? Yes, the voice hissed, bound by sins they thought could be buried. But their truth lives on in you. Sharp gasps filled the room as Ethel's mind reeled. No, we're not like them. She squeezed her eyes shut, forcing herself to focus. They were only echoes, remnants of what could have been. They could rewrite their family history. Ethel, Clara's urgent whisper pulled her back. Look. Suddenly, the images changed again, revealing a ceremony beside a roiling river under a blood-red sky. The air crackled, and something sinister hovered just below the surface. A dagger glimmered with a knowing light, thrust into the earth as if it were sealing a pact. End this cycle, Ethel cried out, her voice stronger now, pushing against the tide of horror. Break the chains. With every ounce of will, Ethel stepped forward. The shadows roared, writhing in anger as if they were being pulled into a storm. You have no power over us, she shouted, her heart pounding like thunder in her ears. But just as the shadows lunged, the ground trembled beneath her feet. The family tree she had always cherished began to crack and splinter, and a voice, softer yet commanding, echoed from deep within her. Face the truth. The air grew electric, swirling, and Ethel closed her eyes again, murmuring a silent prayer. Destiny stood before her, and the truth seemed poised like a breath held too long, ready to explode. The storm outside howled, mixing with the tempest in her heart as she whispered, I'm ready. But before she could grasp the swirling light of revelation, the house shuddered ominously. It felt as if time stopped. What would they discover? And would they be strong enough to confront the legacies that bound them? The shadows thickened, ready to consume her once more, and the final spark of light flickered. What horrors awaited on the other side of the truth? The shadows lunged, but Ethel felt an unseen force wrapping around her, pulling her forward. She gasped, breath hitching as she was thrust into the whirlpool of light. It consumed her whole, a kaleidoscope of visions and voices colliding. Clara's hand slipped from hers, and she screamed out, caught in the jarring transition. Ethel! Benny shouted, his voice muffled by the swirling chaos. And just like that, the chaos stilled, dropping her into a world unlike her own. She found herself standing on a cliff. Below, a turbulent river churned violently, agitated rocks jutting out like jagged teeth. The blood-red sky loomed again, but this time it was clearer, more vivid in the distance. Figures stood at the water's edge, their faces hidden beneath hoods that fused shadows with the landscape. She sensed the weight of their gaze pressing down on her. Panic surged through her, urging her to flee, but her feet were firmly planted as if the ground had roots. "Why are you here?" A voice boomed, ancient and powerful, echoing through the air. Ethel turned to see the hooded figures beginning to approach. They moved with purpose, each step synchronized, as if they were parts of a greater whole. I'm here to break the cycle," Ethel cried out, heart racing wildly within her chest. "I'm not afraid of you." The figures halted, flickers of doubt twitching in their movements. One stepped closer, lowering their hood. Ethel's breath caught as she recognized the piercing eyes staring back at her, eyes identical to her own. "You think standing here will change anything?" It was a question, but its tone reeked of challenge. "Only by facing the truth can we change our fate," Ethel shouted defiantly, though her heart raced with uncertainty. Around her, whispers skittered like leaves in a windstorm. Memories collided in waves, hurling fragments of laughter and pain that struck her deeply. She could almost feel her ancestors, their sorrow washing over her. Their stories were hers now, intertwined. "What makes you different?" Another figure asked, voice laced with skepticism, revealing a hint of her mother's features. "I have the power to choose," Ethel declared. "We can't be defined by our past mistakes. I refuse to live in chains." With a sudden surge of clarity, Ethel raised her hands. "You don't own me," she shouted into the vastness, her words ringing like a bell, sending shockwaves through the gathering. The ground shook violently, echoing her defiance. The cloaked figures reacted, falling back, their confidence visibly crumbling. Their eyes widened, as if to question how she had summoned that strength. "What is this?" the hooded figure demanded, anxiety bubbling in their voice. "You can't possibly believe you can undo generations of sins." "Watch me," Ethel responded, whining under the strain of her own conviction. With newfound resolve, she stepped closer to the precipice, feeling its pull, tethered by something greater than fear. Benny and Clara's voices pierced through the fog. "Ethel!" They called her name, echoing from far away, pulling her focus back momentarily. She turned to see them emerging from the shadows, their expressions a mixture of pride and apprehension. In that moment, Ethel knew the truth. Their shared strength pulsed between them like a current. The river roiling below mirrored the tumult within her heart, both daunting and beautiful, the embodiment of their family's truth, of her own. "But what if we can't change it?" Clara asked, fear threading her voice. "Fear binds us," Ethel replied, and a calm washed over her. "But together we can break free." As one, they stepped forward, arms linked, steadfast against the encroaching shadows. The light began to flicker around them, the ethereal glow intensifying at their united front. The cliff began to rumble, trembling beneath their feet, a precursor to change, and then, in a moment that felt suspended in time, the river surged, erupting in radiant light, and the cloaked figures began to retreat, vanishing into the swirling depths. Breathless, Ethel felt a flood of hope engulf her, but deep within, a niggling doubt remained. What would come next? Had they truly disrupted the chain? Or was this merely the calm before a greater storm? "Ethel!" Benny yelled one last time, desperation lacing his tone as the very ground started to crack, fissures racing toward them. What awaited them at the edge of the light as the house quivered ominously beneath their feet? Their connection to the past now seemed both a gift and a curse. Would they grasp their newfound power, or would it lead them to doom? Ethel stood on the precipice, heart racing, surrounded by her family. The light from the river below blazed like a beacon, pushing back the shadows that had haunted their lineage for generations. In that charged moment, she felt the weight of her ancestors' despair and discontent, a fragile thread binding them all through pain. But she also felt something else, something powerful. "Are you ready?" she asked Clara and Benny, her voice steady despite the tremors of fear that danced in the air. Both nodded, their expressions squaring with resolve. This was it. They were about to confront their truth, their legacy, together. No more hiding. With a shared breath, they stepped closer to the edge, feeling the warmth of the light pulse through them, intertwining their fates. As they settled their feet firmly on the ground, a wave of energy surged around them. The river stirred dramatically, and the voice of the ancient figure echoed through the air again, filled with a mixture of anger and disbelief. You cannot alter the past. You are bound to its fate. Ethel's voice rang out, unyielding. We refuse to let our past control us. We are the authors of our own destiny. The ground shook once more, but they held their ground, hands intertwined, a physical manifestation of their collective strength against whatever darkness threatened to engulf them. The air thickened, swirling with the whispers of their ancestors. It was a haunting echo of the pain and regrets that had been buried for far too long. Ethel could almost see them, the faces of her forebears twisted with anguish, trapped in a sorrowful cycle of blame and betrayal. Suddenly, the river's light intensified, engulfing them in a warm embrace, pushing against the encroaching shadows. Ethel could hear her mother's voice, breaking through the noise. Forgive us, Ethel. Forgive the choices we made. In that moment, everything crystallized for her. It was more than just painful histories. It was forgiveness that could heal. She saw within them the fragility of their choices, lost moments, and unmet hopes. She felt the weight of her mother's sorrow, her sacrifices. And for the first time, Ethel could see their humanity not as figures from the past, but as flawed people seeking connection and understanding. Forgive, Ethel screamed, her voice fierce. We forgive you, and in doing so we free ourselves. The shadows faltered, wavering against the brightness spilling from the river. It was beautiful healing. Ethel felt the tears well up in her eyes, not from pain but from the release of burdens they had carried for too long. The light flowed around them, connecting them to generations past, present, and future. Almost instantaneously, the figures began to dissolve, melting into the light. The specters of grief lifted, replaced with echoes of laughter and love shared among the family. As the river surged higher, it felt like a dam had broken, washing away every buried secret, leaving only the pure essence of love. Just then, the world trembled once more, but this time it was not fear or dread that coursed through Ethel. It was the grip of unity, a realization that underneath it all, what had held their family together was love. No matter how fractured, the ancient voice rumbled again, not in anger, but almost as an acknowledgement, a recognition of something eternal. You, born of sacrifice, hold the power to forgive. You choose. In the cascading light, Ethel smiled, knowing the energy in that moment. We choose love. She echoed in harmony with Benny and Clara. The river erupted, a whirlwind of colors swirling together, and Ethel felt the rush of wind lift through her soul. It was a cleansing, a rebirth. The house shook violently, and for a split second, it felt like they were suspended in time, teetering on the edge of what was and what could be. Lightning flashed, illuminating their resolve, their unity shining like stars in the chaos. And then, as swiftly as it had begun, the ground stilled. Everything settled, and peace reigned, a sacred silence woven into their bonds. They stood there, holding each other, hearts racing but filled with an inexplicable joy, a joy rooted in the understanding that they were not just the sum of their past but architects of their future. Finally, the bruised remnants of their kitchen appeared before them, bathed in warm sunlight. The pot lay still now, a whisper of what once was, yet emanating the rich scent of the new possibilities they had forged together. As laughter echoed down the hallway, the family began to emerge, drawn to their gathering. Each one felt changed in that moment, touchstones of this revelation, their strength, a testament to the bonds of love that endured. Ethel turned to Clara and Benny, her voice soft but clear. We promise to stay together and never let the past define us again. Our story is ours to write, and we will write it together. With that, they joined the rest of the family around the table. The weight of the darkness lifted. They embraced the sweet aroma of their new future, a fusion of triumph, remembrance, and hope, rejoicing under one roof. And as they settled back into their laughter, The shadows retreated, powerless against the legacy of love that remained. Now more than ever, Ethel realized her family had not just survived, they had transformed. And with a satisfied heart, she knew they would always rise together. Wherever the journey may lead, so remember, if you want to keep riding this incredible wave of stories and transformations, you need to subscribe now. Don't let even one more second pass you by. Hit that red button. Smash the like button now to keep the momentum going. And flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about how they overcame their past. And don't wait, share the story with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. They'll thank you for it.